So Behekdem, the first thing we have to understand, and we'll get a little bit more into the sugya, that we're talking about Safa, which is the edge, Svasayam or Sasaim. We're not talking about a Makim Asafik, a place of doubt, like the idea of Ben Hashmashes, which is it Yoim, is it Laila, is it not Yoim, not Laila, is it Yoim and Laila? That's a Makim Asafik, that's a place of doubt. Safa, the idea of the Safa is connected to a place where a certain boundary ends and something continues, and where there's an extension of this boundary outside of itself. So we'll start first to understand a little bit according to the Psukim, and then we'll get a little to the Nigla and then to the Soid. So in Tanakh, like we learned, in the Torah we find different lashonos. We have the lashon of speech that's connected to peh, speech is connected to lashon, and speech that's connected to the safa. So the Malbim in many places, for example, Malachet Perik Beis Vav says Toras emes hoyse befiu va'avla nimsa b'svasav. So the Malbim writes that peh is connected to chachma, lashon is connected to bina, and safa is connected to das. So that actually, what the Malbim writes is really the physiological also in terms of the mouth. So the peh will be like the highest level, which is like the mouth itself, or the container. And then the lashon is already a little more externalized, which is the bina. And the safa is masafa l'chutz, which is already you're speaking out with the sasayim, which is connected to das. So it's chachma, bina, das, and it's being more externalized. So one is dibur like pnimi, or like internal word, which will be connected to lashon, and safa is a safa lachutz, which is something that will be more external. Like the pasuk says in Yeshayin and Tes Gimel, it's the same dibur sheker l'shoinchem avla. Again, the Malbim in Bir Amila says that safa is dibur chitzoni and lashon is dibur pnimi. Lashon comes from the internal world, and this is exactly the same thing that the Gra writes in Mishlei in Yud Beis Yud Tes. Fasam is taken lad. And that is lashon pnimi. Okay, so saim. So that the idea of the lips, so saim, safa, is going to be connected with the world of das. Now das has two opposite things, two opposite qualities. On one hand, das, and this is called das mechaber, and das hamavdil. On one hand, das. What is das? Das is connection. V'adam yada is chava, and adam nu chava. So das means there's a chibur. So das means that there's this chabris, there's a connection between one thing and the other thing that occurs through das. So das is mafteich shes. It's also like the opening of the six midas. So you have something in your seichel, intelligence, and the das opens it up and connects the seichel with the midas. So das is the lashon of ischabris. But das is also connected to pirud, havdalah. Imein das, havdalah minayin. So the Yerushalmi says the reason why you say atachenu l'adam das, we say atachenu l'adam das, is because imein das havdalah minayin. The idea of separation is connected to das. So is das yichud or pirud? So in Lashon Kodesh sometimes you have a word that actually means both things, and they're both opposite. They mean two opposite things. But on a more deeper level, which we'll understand, the idea of das is connected to a type of chibur, a type of connection that is a type of connection that still creates some period, where there's a period, there's a separation, there's a havdalah, and in the havdalah there's a connection. There's like a tension and a balance between. It's not a yichud where it becomes completely submerged, that it becomes one, but there is still a level of separation that occurs within das. So there's a connection, but with a certain realization that the other is still other. So it's a das that's mischaber, connects with the recognition that the other is still an other as a separation. We'll understand what that means in a second. We'll try to understand how it's connected to Saim. So also in the pasuk the parallel Yosef b'chalim v'nahin oimed al sfas hayar. So we learn this also in the Ksava Kabbalah writes that it's connected because that vision that he has, he's because he's trying to say that in the years of famine there'll also be plenty. And the chibur between these two things, between the famine years and the years of Rav and the years of Seva, the years of famine and the years of plenty. However, there's still a separation. There's going to be 7 years of this and 7 years of that, which means there's a hafrada. There's a separation between these two, and in the balance between that, there's a separation between these two. There's also a yichud between these two, that they're going to save enough grain in the years of plenty for the years of Seva. So it's pirud and yichud. So generally, this is the idea of sasayim. Sasayim is the idea of sasayim also is connected with the hafsakas hadibur. You stop speaking, like the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah Lamed Hey, Yishakein Mashikas Piyu. So Yishakein So the Gemara, the lashon of Gemara is chashoich sasecha zu bezu v'atval lahashiv, that you should close your mouth, which means the sasayim actually creates a hefsek of dibur. It's to close your lips, like you say like in English, you close your lips so you're not speaking. But lips is actually the way through which you speak. So there is, on one hand, there's a gvul. It's creating a separation. It's creating a stop to speech. On the other hand, it's the same space that allows for a continuation of that idea. The Gemara in Erchin Tezvav. Shem said to the tongue, it says, all the other Ivarim, all the other limbs of the body are standing and you're lying. Everything is internal, you're external. And not only that, you have two chaymes. You have two stoppages, which means that the sasayim actually creates an end of speech, which means you close your lips. You actually close your lips, which means that it's the end. Okay, so you have dibur, you have sasayim is connected to dibur, to speech, which means to speak, and also the idea of the opposite, of stopping to speak. So it's connected to these two ideas. And this is a very nicely that was brought down in the sasamis that we learned, that there is two aravas. The two aravas are connected to, like the Medrash says, the aravas are connected to the sasayim, are connected to the lips, the Medrash of Ikarava. So we have that the two aravas are connected to the lips, and we know that from the Arizal, the Rakanti, and Parshas Emor, that the shiva, the lulav, the esrog, adasim, and aravas correspond to the spheres. So you have the lulav corresponds to Yesod, esrog corresponds to Malchus, the three adasim, chesed, gevurah, tiferes, and netzach and hoid are connected to the lips, which is the aravas. And that's what is Moshe v'Aaron. So the Sasama says, in Moshe v'Aaron, these two qualities of Dibur and Shasika is you find in Moshe v'Aaron. Because Moshe is Koicha b'Peh. Moshe is the power, Moshe is through speech. Right? Moshe is Vaydaber Moshe, Eila Dvar Moshe, Dibur Moshe. These are the words that Moshe spoke. And there's actually a Medrash Rabbi in the beginning of Dvarim that says that after 40 years, but from the beginning of Matan Torah, Moshe is Aral Svasayim. He can't speak. But Eila Dvar Moshe, Dibur Moshe, Moshe becomes the Bechinas HaMedaber. So Moshe becomes the person that speaks, which is connected to the lips. And Aaron is connected to Vayidam Aaron. Dafke, the idea of Shesoik. Dafke, the idea of silence, of Doim, of silence. So you have this idea of both speech and silence. And this is also a little bit connected also with the idea of, which we learned in the Zera Kodesh and the Rapshitza, that speaks about the Beis Vav Mem Pei, which is the letters of the Sfasayim, the different letters that are rooted in different places of the mouth. And he says the Gematria of that is 128, which is twice the word din connected to constriction. Okay. This is what we have in Sfasayim. And we have to go a little bit deeper into this idea to understand what is this balance between that the lips both create this place of speech, which is the externalization of self, where the person is able to express himself outwards, and also the idea of stopping to speak is also connected to the lips. So the idea of shsika, like going inwards. So the safa, which is like the edge, is the place both that allows for one to go outward, and also a place for outward to come inward, and also a place where it stops the movement from outward to inward and inward from outward. Right? So you have this idea of the safa. let's go a little bit into a little bit another topic and see how this works. A little bit about dibur, the koyach of dibur, the idea of speech, and specifically speech to the society. So the Gemara, some people learned this in yeshiva this year, for the yeshiva Bachar. It's the Gemara Kedushin. So the Gemara Kedushin is like this. The Gemara, the Mishnah Kedushin starts like this: Isha niknes. A woman is required. There's a kinyan with three ways. The kinyan of a isha, in order to become a marriage, it's b'kesav, b'shtar, u'b'biyah. Okay, with kesav, with money, b'shtar, with a document, or with intimacy. So says Rashi. Rashi, in the first Mishnah, says like this: b'kesav, b'shtar. Noisel kesav, v'shav kesav. Now the man gives the woman money or something that's worth the value of money. And he says to her, "Harei mekudeshes li, you are mekudeshes li." This is what he has to say. He has to say, "You are betrothed to me." Shtar, koisel alanir. With a shtar, he writes on this document. Af mishen eshav pruta. What does he write on this document? Harei mekudeshes li. He writes on the document, says Harei mekudeshes li, and gives her the document. Bia, ba'alav amar iskachli b'bia zu v'kul yaf mikrai. And Bia is also, he says, Harei mekudeshes li, and he's intimate with her. So, in order for Kiddushin to take achalois, in order for Kiddushin to occur, it could either be with kesef, with money, shtar, or a bia. Shtar is the one we want to talk about. Shtar is a document. But according to Rashi, Rashi says very clear that when he's koina, when the man, the ish is koina, through kesef, he says, Harei at mukudeshes li. He's koina through bia, he says, Harei mukudeshes li biazu, right? So you have to say it. You have to verbally say, Harei mukudeshes li. How about bishtar? So bishtar doesn't say that. The shtar, you actually write it in the shtar. You take the shtar. What's a shtar? The shtar is a document. What do you write in the document? You write, Harei mukudeshes li, and the man gives it to the woman, and that's the way she becomes mukudeshes. So he writes what he would say, bekesef, b'biyah, he writes in the shtar. And this is what the Rambam, Lahalacha, paskins as well in Hilchosishus, Per Gimel, and Aleph and Gimel. The Rambam writes that if he's mekadesh bekesef or b'biyah, he says Harei mekudeshes li. But if he's mekadesh, if he acquires through shtar, he doesn't say anything because he writes it in the shtar, right? He writes Harei mekudeshes li in the shtar. You follow? This is the simple halacha. There's a Rashi on the Rif. Now the Rashi on the Rif is it's not Rashi. What do you call it, Rashi? It's not from Rashi, but if you look in the Rif, it says Rashi. It's not Rashi. But the Rashi in the Rif, who this person is, we're not sure who wrote this commentary, but it's from the school of Rashi, the Pashtas. When he talks, he says, B'shtar, Rashi writes over there on the Rif, Shtar, Shekoisel Amnir, he writes, Harei mekudeshes li, so he writes, Harei mekudeshes li, you are acquired to me, V'noisel v'oimer came, and he gives it to her and says it. So he says, he writes Harei mekudeshes li in the Shtar, and then he says it, Harei mekudeshes li, and gives it the Shtar. Strange. Why does he have to do this? And this is also, by the way, the Meiri brings down a shita of Chachmei Har, brings down different opinions in the beginning of Meiri Kedushin. He brings out there's also the shita. The Meiri doesn't like the shita, but he says there's a shita, Rishonim, that says that when you give b'shtar, you have to say Harei mekudeshes li b'shtar zu, Harei mekudeshes b'shtar zu, and give it to her. And you write it. You also write it in the ksav. You write it in the shtar, and you have to say it. So we have to understand, what does this mean? Now, the pashtus simply, what is the idea of why does the man, the potential husband, have to say Harei mekudeshes li? Why does he have to say these words? Because it's giladas. He has to explain what he's doing. He has money in his hands, or he has some coins, and he gives it to a woman. Okay, why? what did he do? So he's megaladaita, he's revealing his das by saying, Harei Mekadesh, so you're Mekadesh to me. So what's the pashtus? What's the simple reason why he has to say these words? It's so people shouldn't, so the woman and the man and the Edis should know, and the witnesses should know, what is he doing? So it's Gilui Das. Right? Because the Gemara says later, in Navav, that if they were asukim b'oisa inyan, if they were dealing, the man and woman, two people were talking together, and they were talking about marriage, and then in the middle of the conversation, the guy gives the woman a watch or a necklace or something, she's mekudesh. She's mekudesh. It's considered kedushin. Why? Because you could say two things. You could say two ways that you can see this. Or you can say because the Gilui Das. Because, of course, they're talking about marriage, and then in the middle of talking about marriage, he gave the watch. So obviously, that's the way he's making the kinyan. He's doing the kedushin. Or you can say because Asukah Mois'in, like Rashi writes over there, they were speaking about it. So there was an amira. There was actually a speech. It wasn't the words Harei Mekadesh sleep, but there was saying, I would like to get married to you. What do you think about getting married? And then the guy takes out a coin and gives it to her. So there was an amira. Now, it seems from the opinion of one of the opinions of the Meiri and for Rashi al-Arif that there's actually the amira, the saying it is actually something that has to be done. It's not just because if the whole thing is Gilui Das, if the whole thing is just to reveal what's going on, then certainly if it says in the shtar Harei Mekadesh li, so that's obviously what's happening. Harei Mekadesh li. So it's not the Gilui Das. There's something about the amir. There's something about speech that the man has to say the words Harei at Mekudeshes li. The question is why. Now, the Gemara is later going to talk about a question of Nasan Huv Amrihi. Nasan Huv Amrihi Sveik of Chashinim D'Rabbanan, that maybe Yechayshim D'Rabbanan if the man gave and the woman said. But there was also an amira there. But clearly, the main amira is, the main saying of Harei Mekadesh li is for the man. And I have to understand why. Why is it important to say it? Something about using your lips, using the mouth to say it when there's a kedushin. The Birka Shmuel, Rabbi Ber, for those of you who know, was a Talmud of Chaim Brisker, brings down that amira, not necessarily by shtar, but by kesef and bia, that the idea of the amira is part of the Ma'aseh Kedushin. It's part of the action of Kedushin. It's not like Kedushin is the kinyan of Kedushin, the acquiring of Kedushin is you give the money. And also you have to Gilui Das, you have to say what it is. No, the Ma'aseh Kedushin, the action of Kedushin, entails, part of the action of Kedushin entails that the man, the person that's acquiring, the man, the groom, has to say Harei Mekadesh. It's part of the Ma'aseh Kedushin. And this is also brought down, Av Miluyim brings it down, Simach of Zion, Sivkat and Tess, in the name of the Afla, even though he's Doichet, but this is the opinion. And we have to understand why. Right? If the whole point is Gilui Ba'alma, why do we need this? Later on in the Gemara, I'm just going a little bit deeper into the sugya. Drop, and we'll get back to our topic. The Gemara talks of Yatzav Ha'isa. How do we know that you can make Kaddish b'shtar? How do you know you could actually acquire, how could you can make a Kedushin with a shtar? So the Gemara says Yatzav Ha'isa. And just like there's Yitzia, just like the Chas Shalom with a get, that the Torah says that you can write a Sefer Gerushin, you have to write the Kasavla, that is through a shtar, that's how you divorce. It's the same thing also through marriage. So the Gemara says, let's say the same thing also just like in reverse, just like you can be machnas b'kesef, maybe you can moitzim b'kesef. Just like you can acquire, a woman become married through money, so maybe you can give a get through money, the same thing. So the Gemara says, then yemer kateger nasa saneger. You're going to say the kateger nasa saneger, like the good advocate becomes a bad advocate. The things that allows you to get married now allows you to get divorced. So the Gemara says, but you could say the same thing also with the shtar. the document that allowed you to get divorced. Now that's what you're doing Exer Shava. You're saying that's where you can get married also with shtar. So the Gemara says, no, you can't. There's two different stars. High shtar l'chud umili. The high shtar l'chud. The high shtar l'chud. Umili the high shtar l'chud. Mila the high shtar l'chud. Mila the high shtar l'chud. The words in this shtar is different than the words of that shtar. In that shtar it says you're getting married. In this shtar it says you're getting divorced. So technically you have this. It's a document. It's a piece of paper, but it says something completely different, right? In other words, so the shtar actually says in Mila the high chas. It actually says what it is. So what do you need a speech? Why do you need to? Why would you need, according to Rashi and the Rif and the Meiri? Why would you need to? Why would you need to say it? Dafke b'kiddushin. This is the shaila. Okay. Now, in a regular kinyan, there also has to be an amira. If let's say a person's acquiring a watch, I want to buy your watch from you, and I give you money and whatever, however I'm going to acquire that watch, I also have to say, but it's not the kohen doesn't have to say. The market can also say, anyone could say. Someone has to say in this transaction that the reason why I'm giving you this money is because I want to acquire your watch. But in Kiddushin, it's clear that the Baal has to say. That the man has to say it. Ki yikach ish isha, ki yikach, part of ki yikach is also the dibur. Why? Let's go to another topic, then we'll get back to this. There is a big conversation amongst the poskim, amongst the codifiers, and it's brought to Rabbi Kiva Eger in Madura Kama Simulam days. If a person writes, it's Sfiras Omer, you have to count Sfiras Omer, you have to say B'dibur, right? You have to speak the words of Sfiras Omer. What happens? You're sitting by night, you didn't get Daven Ma'ariv, you didn't say Sfiras Omer yet, and you wrote a letter. And in the letter you wrote, tonight is the third night of Sfira. You wrote this in the letter and you sent your letter. So you didn't say it with your mouth, today is the third day of Sfira, but you wrote it. Is writing the document on the document and saying Sfira on the document, by writing it, is it considered like you spoke? Is Amira, when the Torah says you have to have something at speech, is ksav, when you write something, is it like amira? When you write something, is it exactly as if you spoke it? If it's like you spoke it, then you just yotz Sfiras Omer, then you can't actually make a bracha. But if it's not, then you could make a bracha. So that's the question. Now, if someone was sofer b'liboy, someone counted the Omer in his heart, he said, I think today is the third day of Omer. He didn't actually say it. So that's clearly, you're not yotze, you don't feel the obligation. Because here is lav kedibur. Thinking about something is not like you speak about it, right? You think about the omer, and that's the Bir Halacha brings it in Tav Peitas. This is la halacha. That if you think about something, it's not considered as if you spoke it, because it's just in your mind. It's internal. What if you wrote it? If you wrote it, now the halacha, there's an interesting machlokes between the Alter Rebbe and the Gra about mitzvahs Talmud Torah. If you're yotze mitzvahs Talmud Torah, the obligation to learn Talmud Torah b'machshava. So the Alter Rebbe says, if you wake up in the morning, you have to make a birchas Torah, right before you learn Torah. But what happens if you only think Torah? You wake up in the morning and you're a person that thinks Torah all day. So you wake up in the morning, you start thinking Torah. Do you have to make a birchas Torah before that? So the Alter Rebbe holds no, because birchas Torah, you're only yotze in the midst of the limit of Torah if you say b'dibur, if you speak it. But if you have here, if you're just thinking it, you're not yotze in the midst of Talmud Torah. This is the Alter Rebbe shita. The Gra says that no, but not because the Gra holds that here is kedibur, not because thought is like you speak, because the Gra holds from the pasuk v'gisa yom v'layla v'gisa b'is hegin libi is actually an internal thing, so it sees that the mitzvahs of limit Torah can be also with thought. But what happens if he writes? What if you write divrei Torah? You wake up in the morning, you're not thinking about it, because thinking about it would be, let's say you are thinking about the shit of the Alter Rebbe, you think about it's not a problem. Now you want to write something. Do you have to make a birchas Torah? Is that considered like limud Torah if you're writing it? Writing is considered like speaking divrei Torah. So the Aruch HaShulchan in Simon Zayin, Malachates writes, he has a svara, and this is a good svara. He says, even according to the opinion that holds that ksiva is like dibur, writing is like speech, This is only when the mitzvah is to reveal what's on your heart. So if the mitzvah is to Gilui Das, to reveal what's on your heart, so if you wrote it, you revealed what's on your heart. But if the mitzvah is a mitzvah b'dibur, if the mitzvah is something in speech, like for example, krishma or tefillah, which is a mitzvah to actually do b'dibur, then writing is not good enough. So there's a difference between something that's gilui, to reveal it, or is the mitzvah actually b'dibur? So therefore, let's go back to the question of the shtar on Kiddushin. If the shtar Kiddushin l'chura, the shtar Kiddushin, we must say, is not just gilui b'alma. We have to say this, not just to reveal what's in your heart, because it's revealing your heart. You wrote it. You wrote Harei Am Kodesh Li in the shtar. So you must say that there is something about the chiyuv of speaking. So now we have to understand the difference between speech and writing. How does it work? You have an idea. And the Gra speaks about this in Sefer Yetzirah on the first mission over there. On B'Sefer, B'Sefer, B'Sipur, B'Sefer, B'Sefer, B'Sipur. And he says the difference between a narrative, a story, and a book. The way a person is orally telling over a story, which is B'Dibur, versus something that's a book, but it's Dvarim Pshutim, it's just common sense. When someone writes, so you have an idea, and then your idea is revealed into the paper. When it's revealed into the paper, it actually, once it's revealed into the paper, it dies. It exists in your mind as a living thing, as a living idea, and then it died. Now another person comes and takes these dead letters and reads them. So what is this other person doing? They're animating those letters. So there's a disconnect between the writer and the reader. The writer writes, the words on the page they die on the page. Whatever you want to use those words. Then a second person comes, which is the reader, and reanimates the words. So that's why they say, the author is dead, long live the reader. What does that mean? Because when the author writes something, when you write something b'ksav, once you write it, okay, that's already, it's dead. For you, you put out the words, and now any person, through their own understanding of what's happening, can read those words and re-enliven them in any way. So there's a disconnect between what we'll call the kaisev, the writer, the speaker, and the mashpia and the makabel, the giver and the receiver. However, with speech, what happens with speech? Now, of course, there's always some level of disconnect because everyone hears through their own prism. But the idea of speech, of orally speaking something over, is that there's a direct connection between the giver and the receiver. Between the mashpi and the makabel. The person speaking to you, I'm speaking to you, you're listening to me, we're creating a space where we're both connected. There's no in-between space, which is a space of the dead animate space where it exists as a shtar, as a ksav, as something that's written. So maybe this is the answer, at least a little bit of the answer. I can't say this is the lumnish, but this is definitely maybe a little bit more connected to the answer. That this is the answer why we need a mirror in Bishtar, according to the opinion of Rashi and the Shittim in the Meiri. Because there is a general idea of a kinyan. You make a kinyan of something. You acquire something. You acquire a shoe. Okay, you acquire the shoe. You just need Gilui Das. There's a subject and an object. The object is the shoe. We need Gilui Das to know how the shoe goes from the person number one to person number two. But we're talking about a shoe. So since we're talking about an object, we're talking about a shoe or a land or property, whatever we're talking about, an inanimate object, it's an it. It's not a thou, it's not a living thing. So therefore, what we really need is just Gilui Das. We just need to know what actually happened in this transaction. This belonged to him previously, now it belongs to this person previously. But what we're talking about is actually a kinyan grade. This is just an object, a topic. However, Kiddushin. Now, Kiddushin is a big machlekes between the Sma and Taz, the Chosh Mishpat, whether it's Shavis or Kinyan, but we'll take the Shavis, the idea of Kiddushin, but conceptually, definitely, the idea of Kiddushin is not between an I and an it. It's not between a person, a living person, and an object. It's a Kinyan between two living beings. Now, because it's a Kinyan between two living beings, we need to have a mirror. We need to have the space that allows for the connection between one person and another person. What is the koyach hanushius of a person? What is the primary koyach hanushius of a person? Is the medaber, is the koyach hadibur. So what does koyach hadibur do? Why do we need dibur? Why do we need amira b'kedushin? Why do we need to speak Kiddushin when we're having Kiddushin, if it's B'kasser, B'shtar, or B'biyah? Why do we need Amira? Because the Amira is part of the Chalois of Kiddushin. What is the Amira? The Amira makes the connection between the giver and the receiver. That I and an I are actually having an encounter. This is why we need the Koyach HaDibur. The Koyach HaDibur through the Sasayim, which through speaking, allows the extension of self into the other, and the other to receive my space, to create a true kinyan of issues. And this is also bedakos, really, in a more subtle level, is actually what happens in Kiddushin. What happens with Kiddushin? In Kiddushin, you have Harei Amukudeshesli, which Harei Amukudeshesli means Harei Amuyuchedesli, you become betrothed to me, you become miyuchad, yichud with me, you become one with me. But Kiddushin is also Asalon Kol HaMekehegdesh. The idea of Kiddushin is that the woman, or this marriage, it becomes sacred. Sacred is, Kiddushin means Asalon Kol HaMekehegdesh. It becomes separated. So what is Kiddushin? When a person gets married, what are they actually doing? They're joining together as separate beings in unity, but always as separate. A marriage doesn't create a unity where there's a collapse of two into one. That's not a marriage. A marriage means that there's an Ezer and there's a Kenegdoi. There's someone that's opposite of me, that is nifrad from me, that is mukdash, that is asalana, there's hegdish, that is separated from me, and in that separation there's yichud. There's unity, and that's the tension. That's like the space of the lips is the space of speech, which is both a connecting ability and also the ability to stop connecting. It's a place of dibur and a place of shtika. It's a place where you extend outwards, but also a place where you stop what's extending outwards to stay inwards. And that's what actually a marriage is. So the marriage is the chibur between the man and the wife, between the ish and the isha, but the chibur in a way of sasayim. That's why it has to come dafka. You have to speak it with your lips. You have to say it because the first of all, because of the anushias of the idea, because it's the relationship, and also because the relationship is also founded on the idea of pirud and yichud simultaneously. V'yesh leimer. This we talked about this a few times ago when we talked about shmi and shofar. But very quickly, this is also connected maybe with the chiddush of the Ramban, which the Rambam is mechadash in Drashas Rosh Hashanah, and it's brought down Allah and Tafkuf Peivav. That hirchuk ha-shofar, if a person separates the shofar, when a person blows the shofar, we're not going to talk about shofar too long, but the person separates the shofar from his mouth and blows the shofar and it's separated from his mouth, he's lo yatsa. Where does the Ramban get this halacha from? And this is the way the Shulchan Aruch rules, that you actually have to have the shofar in your mouth. So he learns it from a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if it's a pure zav, you put gold in the front of the shofar, you're not yoitza. So everyone asks the question, what do you mean not yoitza? Why you're not yoitza by tzipur zav if you put gold? Kolan lo yisei nochoitzes. Right? The Gemara says in Sukkah, Lamed Zayin, in many places, that if something is done for endowment, for to make it nicer, it's not a chatzitza. So how come if you put zav in front of the shofar, you're not yoitza? So the Ramban says, this is the logic. This is that the Avnei Nezer writes this in a tshuva in the beginning of Chakas Yoav. He writes that the reason why the zav, it's not because of the din of chatzitza, it's the din of hefsek. The reason why you're not yoitza the blowing of the shofar with gold in the front of the shofar is not because of the chatzitza, because of the separation. Because kol anais ein chatzitza, there's no chatzitza, there's no separation, but there's a hefsek, there's an empty space. And from that, the Ramban understands that you actually need to touch the shofar, it has to touch your lips. You're following the logic? No, that means it's not a chatzitza. There's no chatzitza, but there's still empty space. So there's no chatzitza, it's not a separation, but there's empty space. So the Rambam says, so that's so we know that you're not allowed to have empty space between the mouth and the shofar. There's hefsek and chatzitza, two separate things. Chatzitza means this is over here, this is a chatzitza between this thing and this. But if this thing and this thing are together, there's a hefsek between them. It's not a chatzitza. Chatzitza means there's actually a boundary in between. Okay, the truth is it's safaran. We're not going to go into this. The point is that the shofar is also mashpia. You also need lishmaya kol shofar and letkoya b'shofar, and that's going to be also the chiluk. But we're not going to go. Let's go weiter. Now, so yeah, this is also maybe not so. Yeah, no. Okay, let's go to the Zohar. The Zohar Chodesh. Parshas Yisro.
The separateness
Yeah.
and the unity. Who's the offering so that every moment, essentially, because you're keeping up with Kedushin, you're like being accomplished?
Yeah, the Rakchavan. So we learned in Zohar Chodesh like this in Parshas Yisro, Daf Nun Ches. The Zohar. If you read what the Zohar is saying, the Zohar basically saying that Moshe is Torah Shebiksav. Moshe is Torah Shebiksav, and he enters into a Teva. Teva is Oisius. He goes into the Oisius. And he's put on a Svasayar, on the edge of the water. And like the Tikkun Zohar says that the water represents Torah. He's put at the edge of the water. What is the edge of the water? The Svasayam is Torah Shalapah. This is Torah Shalapah. The Sasayam is like the edge of the water is the place of Torah Shalapah. Like it says, like we quoted the Gemara before, Ketovim Dach Mayayin Yishkei Meshikas Piyu Areven Div Torah Yosem Yenishal Torah. Now, Safa, we're going to get back to this. We'll understand what Torah Shalapah is. What is Torah Shalapah? Why is it connected to the Sasayim? And Sasayim, the way we understood now, is Sasayim is actually the chibur, the connection, or the context, the larger context that contains these two opposing forces: the force of yichud and the force of afrada. Das, right? It actually creates it's the space that creates the tension between connecting, between completely submerging itself and simultaneously staying separate. So we have the idea that Safa is Gematria Shechina. This is what it says in Kisveri. Now, what is Safa? What is Shechina? What is the Shechina? So, there's a big machlekes Rishonim. What the Shechina is. The Ramban in Bereshis Memvav Yisbach Lilkei Avi Yitzchak. The Ramban says he argues very strongly against the Rambam and the Moira, and the Ramban says that the Shechina is covered boira. What's the Shechina? When it talks about the Torah, when it mentions the word Shechina, it's referring to the covered, the glory of Hashem's presence. Other Rishonim, like the Rasag, in the Amun V'Deis, Maimer Beis, the Kuzir, Maimer Daled, and the Moira Nevuchim, and Chelak Aleph, hold that the Shechina is actually covered Nivra. That it means that the Shechina, when it says in the Torah, anywhere where it mentions in the Torah that the Shechina was resting, we're not actually talking about God. We're not talking about Hashem. We're not talking about the Boira. We're talking about the covered Nivra. It's almost like the highest form of refinement, of subtlety, of spirituality that's revealed, that's an expression of us, that's touching on something that's divine, but it's not divine. It's not the boyer. It's the nivra. Let's say a person feels the presence of the Shekhinah maybe because they're singing or they're dancing or they're learning. They sense the Shekhinah. So these are trying to say you're not sensing Hashem's presence. You're sensing the highest possibility of the human capacity to feel something that is open to the divine. So it's covered in Nivra. Now the Orach Chaim on the same pasuk writes like this. And it's a simple explanation to say that machlekes between the Rishonim, between the Ramban and the Rambam, is Adregas Ora Shechina Rabim Hema. There's many levels of the Shechina, And there's some Chazal that says Lo'ilam lo yard Shechina lamat masar tvachim, and then some places that the Shechina never goes on under 20 tvachim. Some places Chazal say Chol bakum shegalu Shechina imam, so the Shechina is there. So there are bands. The Archaim Kodesh writes like this: Kibul Kusi is baruch hu oy shava. Aval ba'oy hamavikim menu shisachas al bechinas hamadregas. There's many different levels. In other words, like this: is it covered boyer or covered nivra? It depends when. Depends when. Sometimes it's the highest peak of the human experience, which is the nivra, and sometimes it actually dips into the place of the covered boyer. Why? Because safa, what is safa? Like the svasayar or the safa, the edge. The edge is not a definite thing, and we'll see soon from other sources. The edge is just saying this is where conceptually this thing ends, and something else begins. But the definition, the separation of that clear divide is always meant to transcend it. It's there, it's like a division that's inherently placed so you can actually transcend it. So it's saying that, I don't know if this is clear what I'm trying to say, but that we'll see soon. There's a shtickle from the Moranayim that actually Mamish says this, that the idea of the choil, that the choil ayam, that it's actually divided, the choil, I'll just read it to you already now. Choil umlashin samti chol gvul ayam, the Moranayim Pashas Tzavim. Choil is the idea of that it put divide, and then he says a choil is the weekday. That's the 6 days a week. That's the mania of kedusha that puts the boundary and says kedusha is only Shabbos, choil is not. The whole point of the choil is to transcend the choil. It's to recognize that here is the edge that we're supposed to transcend the edge. Because if you don't have an edge, you don't actually know you don't have a definition. So you have a definition. This is Shabbos. This is choil. And this is a very strict divide. Here you're allowed to do malacha, here you're not allowed to do malacha. But the point of having that division is actually to be transcended. And he says ultimately it becomes transcendent completely with every day, with Yom Shikul Shabbos. So again, getting back to the idea of the Shechina. The Shechina and the Safa and the Torah Shabbat. There is Torah Shabbat. Now, Torah Shabbat is a little bit different than when we talked about Ksav. Because Torah Shabbat, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. Not just Baruch HaKodesh. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote Torah in a way that Moshe was Makabel Torah panim al panim. Moshe was Makabel Torah face to face. It was an oral transmission to Moshe. Klal Yisrael, when we received that oral transmission of Torah of panim al panim, what happened is Parchim Nishmasim. We did not have the capacity to receive the oral transmission of Torah Shebiksav the way Moshe Rabbeinu Peh Peh. So for us to be reduced the experience that we should have a way to access the Torah Shebiksav of Peh Peh, the words were transmitted to Ksav. The Ksav is the condensation or the contraction of that original light. And then, through that, we have access to Torah Shebiksav. Right? So we have access to the living word of the Dvar Hashem through the Ksav. But the experience of Torah Shebiksav in its original form, and even Lahalacha in today's form, is that we don't have to participate in Torah Shebiksav. The definition of Torah Shebiksav for us is that it's B'derech Mavet, just passing through us. Lahalacha, if you make a Birchas HaTorah, and you learn a Mishnah. You make a Birchas HaTorah in the morning to say a Birchas HaTorah, and you just learn a Mishnah, you're Yoitze. How about if you read the Mishnah, and you don't know what you're saying? You make a Birchas HaTorah, on Torah Shabbat Peh, and you read the Mishnah. This is why you actually read the Zalma Kaiman, or this is why you read after Birchas HaTorah, the Eila Dvarim, the Mishnah and Peah, because you're supposed to understand it. What if you don't understand what you're reading? Are you Yaitz in the mitzvah? Do you fulfill the obligation? The answer is in Torah Shabbat, no. You don't fulfill your obligation. In Torah Shabbat, you fulfill your obligation. You make a Birchas HaTorah, you say, Hashem Yishmecha. You don't know what you're saying? You're still Yaitz. Why are you still Yaitz? Why do you fulfill the obligation? Because in Torah Shabbat, it's not about us. There is an us. There's a makabel Torah, but we're makabel Torah in a way of parach nishmasim. We're not present in our full conscious state, or we don't need to be present in our full conscious state to actually receive it, because it's a transmission. It's passing through us, not to us. It's b'derech maver. It's passing through us. So if you read Torah Shebiksav without understanding what you're learning, you're yotze the mitzvah. If you scan and you just read letters in Torah Shebiksav, you fulfill the obligation. If you do this in Torah Shebiksav, you're not yotze. Some shittas hold maybe if you do this for the Zohar, this could be the Chidon writes. But in general, this is something you're not yotze. Why? Because Torah Shebiksav, what does Torah Shebiksav mean? Torah Shebiksav means that you have to participate in the receiving of the Torah. Torah Shebiksav, the Kabbalah Torah, is the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah, at least according to the Shitta of the Rambam, not the Rosh, that the mitzvah of lichta Sefer Torah, and if you write a Sefer Torah, the mitzvah is to say lichta Sefer Torah la'atzmai, and if you write the Sefer Torah, hi l'kabel m'pnei hashchina, as if you makabel m'har Sinai, as if you received it in Har Sinai, because the idea of Torah Shebiksav is I am just receiving it through me. That's Kabbalah Torah. The Svasayar, what's the edge of the water? The edge of the water is the place where it's the Makim HaYichud and Makim HaPirud. It's the place of unity and the place of separation. In my experience of receiving the Torah, in Torah Shebal, I need to be two things simultaneously. On one hand, I have to be completely submerged in this transmission of understanding of the receiving of the Torah. On the other hand, I have to fully participate. If I don't participate, I'm not yotze the mitzvah. I didn't fulfill my obligation if I don't understand what I'm learning. So I need to be. It's like the same idea like in a marriage. That's why Matan Torah. B'yom Chasanos is Matan Torah. The day of the Yom Chasanos is Matan Torah. Which Matan Torah? Not the Luchas Rishonos, not the first Luchas, the second Luchas on Yom Kippur, because that's Torah Shebal Peh. What's a chasana? What's kiddushin? Kiddushin means, what is marriage? I exist as one, as an independent, and I exist in unity. I exist as both. Mikudeshes and miyuchedes. I'm hekdesh and miyuchedes. That's the dialect, the subtle space where Torah Shebal Peh occurs. Torah Shebal Peh occurs in that space where on the one hand I'm batel, I'm receiving Hashem's Torah, I'm learning Hashem's Torah. On the other hand, I am learning Hashem's Torah, and I understand Hashem's Torah, and my seichel understands this. I'm standing on the safa. I'm standing on the edge of the water, and one part of me is dipped into the full immersion in the water, where I'm completely nullified. On the other hand, I have 1 foot on the ground, which I'm totally outside of the water. And here's where it gets really interesting, because we said before about the Shechina, that the Shechina is a covered boyer, a covered nivra. And the Or Chaim says, whatever time you're talking about it. And the truth is that is a paradoxical statement. You say that anything that a person, that a student is mechadish means innovates, was given at Sinai. You just said it was a chiddush. It was a chiddush, and it couldn't have given a Sinai. And also, you're standing 3,000 years after Matan Torah, and you're machadash in Torah. Let's say it's a real chiddush. Let's say it's actually a real chiddush. A real chiddush is not, they say, is not nitn Moshe Sinai. It's a chiddush of nitn Moshe Sinai. It's a chiddush. You say something that's a creative idea. You say that idea was already given at Sinai. So then it's not a chiddush. Then it's not a novelty. And how could you say that it was given? You just created it. And the answer is that it actually loops back, because the safa is the space of also yichud. And if it's a place of yichud, the makabel becomes the mashpia. And the makabel, you're receiving the Torah, you're makabel, you're on the sasayim, you're on the outside. You're receiving through your seichel. You become nullified, but now the nullification of the self is even higher than nullification of Torah Shebiksav. In the nullification of Torah Shebiksav, I don't exist. In the nullification of Torah Shebal Peh, I exist fully in the infinite expanse of nothingness. So therefore, when I'm looped into that idea of separation and unity simultaneously, so I become part of the shefa, part of the original shefa. So it's part of Nitn Moshe Sinai. And it's actually a chiddush I was given 50,000 years ago. Because I just became part of the infinite one, and part of the infinite one is beyond time, so it was already given thousands of years ago. So how do I exist? I exist both full self and non-self, simultaneously. This is the chiddush. This is what the svasayar, this is what the safa is the shechina, and the shechina, the covered boira, niver becomes the covered boira. And the makabel becomes the mashpia. This could help us understand one last thing, because we're entering into Chanukah. There's still word about Chanukah, because the Shabbos is Varch and Chanukah. So just to finish with an idea of Chanukah. So Chanukah, the famous question is the famous Shiur. How come there's no Masechtas Chanukah? How come there's no tractate of Chanukah? There's no tractate of Chanukah. There's a tractate for Yom Kippur, Yuma, there's a tractate for Rosh Hashanah. There's a tractate for Sukkot, Megillah even. Why is there no tractate for Chanukah? This is a famous question. And the Mishnah mentions Chanukah many times, 7 times at least. The Mishnah mentions it in Bikurim, in Perek Aleph, Mavim, Aloi Korim at Chanukah. You can bring from Sukkot, you can bring Bikurim, but you can't say it. The Mishnah mentions it in Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, Perek Aleph, about Shalchim Shluchim. They send out different messengers. So in Kislev, they're sent out for Shluchim, for Chanukah. The Mishnah mentions it with regards to Kriya in Megillah, twice in Perek Gimel. What's the Kriya on Chanukah? What do you have to read on the Sefer Torah of Chanukah? The Mishnah mentions it in Moed Katan with regards to mourning, the laws of mourning on Chanukah. The Mishnah mentions it even in Bava Kama, the laws. If you're walking you're walking down the street and it catches fire, your flax or your pishto catches fire from menorah. So the Mishnah does mention Chanukah. But why is there no Masechtas Chanukah? So of course the Gra, in his original way of thinking, says, yeah, there was a Masechtas Chanukah, it was just lost. So, okay, that's an easy answer. There was, the Gdamar of Palam, he says there was a Masechtas Chanukah, we don't have it. There was Masechtas Chanukah, we lost it. Okay. It's a chiddush, yeah, it's a big chiddush. The Chidah in Dvar Machadim writes that we have the Mishnah in the Tanya, my Chanukah, the Gemara asks, my Chanukah, where's Chanukah coming? It brings on a brisa. Where's the brisa? The brisa is in Megillus Tainas. So the Chidah writes, they didn't need to make a whole tractate of Chanukah because we had Megillus Tainas. It's a big tzarach here because no one knows Megillus Tainas and bottom Megillus Tainas, and no one who read Megillus Tainas. Most people didn't read Megillus Tainas, so it's a problem. Anyways, you find it. You can find Megillus Tainas. You can find
different than Masechet.
Yeah, Megillus Tainas is a special thing that had the Megillah of all the days you're not allowed to fast. And the Gemara Rosh Hashanah says already bottom Megillus Tainas, and therefore maybe Shivas Batamas, you could eat, not eat, whatever. There's man Shia Shalom, Ein Shalom. Anyways, what's taka? Why don't they? So there's another way to understand one other thing. Then we'll get to the point. The Rambam in Pirush Mishnayos, in Masechtas Menachos, the beginning of Atcheles, the third parak of Menachos. If you learn Atcheles, you know what Atcheles is about. Atcheles is about tzitzis. And those Dafei Gemara in Menachos talk about tzitzis, talk about mezuzah, Sefer Torah, Tefillin, it's all these things. And the Rambam says, how come there's no Mesechtas Tefillin, Mesechtas Sefer Torah, Mesechtas... He says, so the Rambam says simply because these are things that Dvarim Yiduim, everyone knows this. Everyone knows how to put on Tefillin, everyone knows how to write Sefer Torah, everyone knows to put on mezuzah, so therefore there's no Mesechta. So Tzarachin, if this is a good answer, because there actually are Mesechtas, there's called something Mesechtas Ktanas. You look in the back of Avodah Zarah. There's Mesechtas Avodah Zarah. There's Mesechtas Sefer Torah. Mesechtas Mezuzah. Mesechtas Tefillin. There's actually Mesechtas that have it. And unfortunately, we don't know how to celebrate Hanukkah. And there's a lot of Gemara trying to figure it out. And if you want, I can figure out a whole Mesechtas Hanukkah. You can figure out how do you like Hanukkah? What do you like Hanukkah? So Hanukkah is not written down. Huh? Sefer Maccabim. That's the Sfarim Chitzonim. No, it wasn't canonized. Talking about mamish canonical text. There is. You could say they used to actually read Megillas Antiochos. They used to read it in the Zman Goinim with a bracha even. Whatever. That's another negate. But that's not. Benzir is something else. That's mamish Torah Chitzonim. There's a different thing. No. It could be, but that's not Chazal. That's not the version of Chazal. And the Sefer Maccabim doesn't talk about the Nes Chanukah. So that's it. So it was a shitta. There was a different shitta. Okay, that's another thing. And interestingly, the Zohar doesn't mention Hanukkah. Hanukkah is not mentioned in the Zohar. You would think the Zohar, there's Hanukkah. Hanukkah is like the highest Yom Tov. The Zohar is quiet of Hanukkah. Talks about the oil and lights, but not Hanukkah. No Hanukkah. What's Hanukkah? No. If it does, it's in passing. But there's no sugi in Hanukkah. There's no. So what? Why not? So there's a word from Baal Shem Tov, that the Mishkan is connected to Bria. The Mishkan was connected to Bria, and the Menorah is connected the first Maimer, the Maimer Echad. Now the Maimer Echad, Basar Mor is Nivroel. The world is created for 10 Moras. But what's the first Maimer? What's the Maimer Echad? Bereshis. Well, there's a Machlokes also, Midrashim. But the Pashas, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says that Bereshis is not a Maimer, but Bereshis is not revealed. It's not a revealed Maimer. It's a Maimer Sasum. It's a concealed Maimer. So this is connected to Hanukkah. That's a Maimer Sasum. The Baal Shem didn't talk about it in Masechtas Hanukkah, but he says that it's a Maimer Sasum. It's a concealed thing. It's no speech. Let's say something very interesting. It's just an observation about Hanukkah. Every Yom Tov we celebrate, Purim, Pesach, Sukkot, it was a Yom Tov that there was a Gilui, there's a revealing of Hashem's light, and the revealing was to the Klal. Klal Yisrael experienced Matan Torah. The whole collective Klal Yisrael experienced Pesach, going out of Egypt. Klal Yisrael experienced the Yeshua of Purim. Who experienced Hanukkah, the Nes Hanukkah, the Pach Shemen? Who? Yeah, a few Kohanim. This is the only Yom Tov that we celebrate that a few Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash, the night that they entered into the Beis HaMikdash, a Chafei Kislev, or Chavav Kislev, whatever, according to the Meir, they entered that time. They come in there, 10 guys, 20 guys, 50 people. How many people came in? Warriors after a long day's work, and they come into the Beis HaMikdash and they see the menorah, they light the menorah, and a miracle happens. Who sees the menorah lit throughout the night? The Cheshvan. Who sees it for 8 days? Maybe another few people. So it's the only Yom Tov that we actually celebrate for Yechidim. So how did Klal Yisrael know about it? How did they know about the miracle? They were told. It was oral. It was given over to them. There came a proclamation from the Beis HaMikdash, I'm assuming, that people started saying, do you know what's going on in the Beis HaMikdash? A regular person can't see it. It's in Kodesh. According to the Shittas, that it was actually in the Kodesh. If it was actually in the Kodesh, and it was the menorah of the real menorah, and it was actually in Kodesh, no one could see it. So the Kohen could see it. The Kohen that was doing the Avodah Zarah, the Kohen that were entered into the Kodesh, not even the Levim could see it. So how did they know about it? It was told to them. It was orally transmitted to them. So what's the chilek? In general, the whole idea of Hanukkah, and this is another sugya we have to talk about it, Be'ez Hashem, like Hanukkah, but the whole idea of Hanukkah is a malchama of Torah Shel Peh against Chachmas Yavim. That's the arch theme of Hanukkah, where it's a triumphant of Torah Shel Peh. The Torah Shel Peh, the victory of Torah Shel Peh over the Misyavadim, which was Chachmas Yavim. That because the whole idea of Hanukkah, the whole concept of Hanukkah, is Torah Shel Peh. That's what it is. It's an oral tradition. Because the whole idea of Torah so that's why Rabbi never wrote Mishnah or Masechtas Hanukkah. Because the whole idea of Hanukkah is that it has to be oral. The moment you write something and you document it in an ksav, it becomes part of the ksav. And let's go a little bit more ba'imik. The difference between something that's written and something that's experienced is a difference between something is objectively true or subjectively true. Now, I don't mean everything that's written is true. But when something is written down as truth, because this becomes a canonical text, this becomes a Kisvei HaKodesh, the truth of this experience is lived outside the subjective of the truth of the experience. It's true because as I state. You're following? When something is written down, the truth of the Purim story comes from the Torah itself. And the Torah itself is the objective truth, documenting what the objective truth of experience. Chanukah, the whole idea of Chanukah is dafka yechidim, specifically individuals. When a collective experiences something, it actually also becomes an objective truth. Because let's say you're sitting with 1,000 people and you saw something. Now these 1,000 people confirm that this was true. But if you experience something on your own, it's totally a subjective experience. There's no way to verify it, only between yourself and yourself. The Torah Shabbat is the subjective, not the objective. Torah Shabbat is the objective truth. This is what it is. Torah Shabbat is when Hashem wants us, the subjective, to experience truth in our subjectivity in line with the objective truth of Torah. To be a machadash, which is our subjective, but it should be Nitna Torah Sinai, part of the subjective truth. And in order for the subjective to continuously be true to himself, to the experience of self, as not as part of the collective, it was revealed only to individual people, to subjective people, and it was always given over, transmittedly, orally, over to people. Because it always had to be a truth that lives within our heart, that lives within our mind, and that's true because it says, and it's experienced in the objective. And this is what Torah Shabbat is, and this is what the Safa is, and this is what the Shekhinah is, and this is what we all have to experience, Be'ezer Hashem, now and forever.
Clarification on the